Dance Hub Student of the Week show. I'm Brian Hankins. Today we have Kim Bors, HR executive and competitive dancer. Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Great, thanks Brian. Happy to be here.
So tell us, how did you get started dancing?
Well, I have kind of an interesting story about that. About 6.5 years ago, a friend of mine, a work colleague, actually asked me to volunteer for a charitable event. And I really didn't even know what it was going to be. And she said, oh, just do it, you'll love it.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a Dancing with the Stars kind of event. And I got paired with a professional dancer, which was like super cool. And we did a show number to Little Party. Never Scared Nobody.
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah, super fun.
So did you do any dancing as a kid, or that was the only dancing experience you had?
Well, actually, in high school and in college, I was on what was called a precision dance team. Okay. And so the way I would describe it, it was sort of like Rockettes. You know, kick lines, precision, you know, hand
Perfect.
You know, snaps, head snaps.
So a little different from ballroom.
Different from ballroom. I think I've had to get some of that rigidity out of my ballroom dancing and make it more fluid. And,
that's awesome.
But yeah, that was it.
So you had a little bit of a hiatus and then found dancing again.
Yeah, I tried for many years to get my husband or, you know, anybody to just go social dancing. And the coolest thing was when I found out that you can actually get a pro partner.
Right? I know. Who knew?
How cool is that?
Yeah. And I think that's a problem a lot of people run into, is they're interested in dancing, but then they think, well, who am I going to dance with, or how am I going to find a partner? And I think that's one of the great things about ballroom, is that there are pros out there that are there to help you dance and do a great job of kind of bringing you along and being patient, which is sort of what we all need when we start out.
Exactly.
I was just going to say, so you started with this charity event, and then kind of how did it progress from there?
Well, it sort of captured my attention, you know, that little niche that was there wanting to get started with dancing, and that was it. That's all it took. So we did a really fun show number, and my pro partner, he said, well, you're ready for something else? And I'm like, absolutely. So I started kind of in a non-traditional way. A lot of people come into a studio and they learn, you know, the basics of ballroom, and I actually started with show dance, so which was really all about the performance and you know, the fun stuff as far as I was concerned.
I've definitely noticed just by watching that you definitely have a knack for the flair for like the show dances, so I can see that that's your essence, a little bit of your essence.
Well, it's definitely what kind of makes me tick, so it's the chance to perform. But I think the other thing to consider in this, in ballroom is, you know, you can approach it as a social experience, or you can approach it as a sport. Yeah. And I, for sure, take it as my sport. Yeah. And, you know, I'm really interested in, you know, the technical aspects, the performance aspects, the competitive nature. Yeah. But that doesn't mean everybody deals with it. Sometimes it's really just a social outlet, which is actually the super fun part of dancing as well.
Well, I think one thing that's great about dancing is it can meet people in a lot of different ways. So someone that just wants the social side can do that. Someone that wants to just do a crazy show dance where they can just, you know, kind of go out there can do that. And then someone that does want to treat it more like a sport can do that part of it. So it's kind of great that it can meet people at different spots.
Absolutely.
And, you know, give them different things. So you were doing these show dances, and you had this competitive streak. How did you get into dance sport and start kind of moving into doing competitions? Or maybe how long from when you just started till you started competing?
Well, I did that event, and it was in November, about 6.5 years ago. And then pretty much from then on, I had to kind of back up and learn the technical, correct aspects. I started with rhythm, and then I went into a smooth, American smooth, and I continued to do show numbers. And so I went from doing show numbers with one pro to show numbers with 2 pros, and then now I'm kind of crazy and do show numbers with 4 or 5 or 6 pros.
So it's just grown over the years.
Right, but all along I went back to the core of rhythm and smooth, and then really started competing pretty quickly and kept the show dance part in the competition as well. And then subsequently I added Latin, you know, the international styles, Latin and standard, and so I feel like it's become truly the sport, you know, being able to do the compulsories plus also the freestyle. If you want.
You're kind of hitting everything there. And since you've been doing competitions for so long and you've been very successful at it, is there anything that you tell new dancers that are kind of just maybe about to their first competition like lesson that you learned along the way that you wish you could have told your younger self?
Probably. I mean, first of all, don't get like totally stressed out over a competition.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, just walk out on the floor and dance and have a good time.
Where were you to tell me on my first competition? I was so stressed out on my first one.
And, you know, so often I think people, you know, are so worried about being technically correct that they forget to have fun and smile. And I think the part I like most about the competitions is actually the crowds, the people watching.
Yeah.
And, you know, my personal goal is to go out and perform every single time, every heat of every cha-cha or every rumba or every paso, and kind of play with the crowds.
Yeah.
I want to be the crowd pleaser, and I hope I dance well technically as well.
I think that's great, and I think that is a lesson that you learn as you do it more. I mean, I think when you, at least for myself, when I first started, I was just thinking about what I'm doing and my steps, and like I don't want to look at the crowd, and I don't want them to, almost don't want them to see me because I'm like so internal. And I think as you learn more and get better and do it more, you're more outward and you're more projecting to the crowd and interacting with the crowd. And I think that's a good, like, sort of lesson you learn along the way.
Yeah, and it relaxes you.
And it totally relaxes. If you're more comfortable interacting with them, you're not scared of the crowd now, you know?
Exactly.
So, and I think that's a part of, you know, it's definitely a next level is like being more comfortable on the floor. And part of that, I think, is interacting with the crowd. So that's great. So you've been doing competitions for a while. How, you know, you were doing this charity, then you were doing competitions. How did you finally come to find My Dance Hub?
Well, that's an even more interesting story. So I had been working in Milwaukee, and that's where I started dancing. And so for, gosh, more than 5 years, even though I wasn't working in Milwaukee, I was still commuting there to go to the studio to work with the pros that I'd been working with all along. And for a whole host of reasons, they were going to go do different things. I didn't really want to commute to Milwaukee anymore, so I really started looking for a new pro. So sometimes you look for a studio, and sometimes you look for a partner. And so I was looking for a pro partner, and I had a whole bunch of criteria that were really important to me. Number one, they had to be a really strong dancer, technically very strong. Had to be tall. That was a pretty important criteria. They had to enjoy the aspects that I was interested in, which includes the show dances. And not all pros want to do that. Some are just, you know, we're here to dance, be technically, and I'm into the fun of it. So
so you went kind of both sides of that.
Absolutely. And somebody, you know, that was really willing to kind of stick with a long-term partnership, because these relationships are really important, and it's a style and a comfort level in dancing with someone. So actually the story is, it was known, and I was talking to a lot of people. I talked to different pros all over for about 6 months, actually looking for. And someone had told me about Pavel, that he was potentially going to be coming to the U.S. And voila, here we are. And I was so excited that
that's great.
He actually made the permanent move and is here at My Dance Hub. And
that's amazing. And I think it's a little bit on what we were talking about earlier. It's great that you can find these pro partners that are like, if you don't have someone to dance with that can dance with you and compete with you and can be hit a lot of the criteria that you're looking for, kind of a perfect match. And I think a lot of people, everyone looks for something different in a pro partner, and it's great that you found someone that was such a good match. Did you know from the first lesson, or was it unsure at first and it took some time?
Oh, you know, and this is not saying anything that Pavel and I haven't talked about. I mean, at first he was really super serious, and I'm like, okay, you know, how much can you have fun with this? But he's amazingly technically strong, and you know, he's Canadian champion, so you know, he's top of the heap. But it's like it has to be everything. So I really poked him a lot on the performance piece, and, you know, smiling and having fun, and that happened really quickly. So that was important.
And it is interesting. There's sort of this slider between like having fun and then being serious and competitive about it, and it's a balance, definitely a balance, because you can go far in either extreme, you know, where you're just out there, I'm just having fun dancing, versus being super competitive, and it can be tricky to balance those things.
Right, exactly. So
that's so cool. How do you fit dancing into your life? Because obviously you're doing, was it 4 styles? I mean, there's a lot of show numbers, there's a lot of dancing happening. Do you have certain ways that you try to, structure your days or make it work in your life?
Yeah, I think, the key is it happens over time. It's not an overnight thing. I've been doing this, more than 6 years. And yes, I've been aggressive about it. And, I typically practice 3 to 4 hours at a time, especially
big blocks.
Yeah. For me, when they started off talking about 40 or 45-minute lessons, I'm like, I always said I need double wide. I have to have doubles of everything because that's not enough time. But so I would say I kind of immersed myself in a way to get that good foundation, and it makes it much easier. Now, the reality is we have probably literally 48 routines, so there's a lot of mental
just keeping all the routines in your head.
That's really necessary, and it's muscle memory. So that builds over time. It doesn't, that's not a thing that happens in a couple of months.
Totally, and I think everyone kind of figures out how to fit it into their life and at what level they want to fit into their life.
Absolutely, and when we're heavy into competitions, the travel schedule and the work schedule really blend. And I can't tell you the number of times that I'm at a competition and you have a gap of a couple of hours, and so I'm on conference calls or dealing with work-related things, and at the last minute I'm taking my headset off to walk out onto the floor to compete. So I feel like for me to be able to toggle between those two kind of almost seamlessly is part of what works for me.
Yeah, so since you touched on it, tell us what you do when you're not dancing for your day job.
At my day job, well, I lead global human resources for a large industrial company, Dover Corporation. I've been in big industrial companies for a long time. I typically travel extensively internationally as well as domestically. It's been a little bit of an interesting period here this last few months. But my typical work life is very much heavy travel, and so it's a continual balance, and you juggle just like you juggle family. So I'm very active. We have 3 20-something kids, so we spend a lot of time with them. We travel, we go on really interesting, adventurous trips. So there's a lot going on in our lives.
Definitely, but you're making it work. You're thriving. So I can definitely tell you put a lot of time and effort in your dancing. So what is it you're getting out of it? Like, why do you dance? What's the thing for you?
Well, for me, it's a combination. It's for sure it's a diversion, a very big diversion from a very stressful senior, corporate life. So that's important. It's got every aspect of exercise, mind and body, well-being. It's performance. It's an outlet for so many different things. And actually, a lot of people don't realize, but there are actually scientific studies on the benefits of ballroom dancing because it has such a holistic impact on your well-being. So it's memory, it's physical activity, it releases endorphins. I mean, there's just a whole host. There's actually a Johns Hopkins University study.
So there's great science behind dancing, and it makes a lot of sense because there's a lot spatially going on with dancing, right? You got to think about where your body is in space, and it's kind of getting you out of your chair. So many people are sitting all day, so it's a great way to get out of your chair. And I think there's a lot of social things happening with dance. So I know I've met a lot of great friends dancing. I assume socially it's impacted your life as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a community that is created in the people that you are here at the studio with, that you may be at a competition with, and frankly you get to be friends with. One of the women, Rosemary, that recently started dancing here, she came to a luncheon that I was able to bring her to as a guest, and it was something that she got involved in as a result of that. That happened to be relating to the Heart Association, which really leads me to another interesting thing in terms of the benefits of ballroom dancing. And again, there's some science behind it, but also it's been shown to be a great method for recovery for like stroke victims and people that have had issues. And I had a really scary and fortunately a really good outcome with a situation just over a year ago when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Unfortunately, it was benign, but it was large, and it was causing spatial and sequential kinds of issues. And I have to say, you know, the recovery, and my neurosurgeon was super pleased. There's a funny story there too, but he was super pleased with my recovery, but it was like instantaneous, and I was back to dancing and recalling my many routines without any issue. But the funny story was, about 2 weeks after my surgery, when I was in for a post-op check, I had said, you know, is it okay if I like do Pilates on the floor, you know, like mat Pilates? And he said, absolutely not. And my son was with me for the checkup, and he asked the surgeon, he said, well, is it okay if she starts dancing again? He said, sure, dancing's fine.
Oh, that's great. So he had no idea what kind of dancing you were doing?
Absolutely not.
Oh, that's great.
So, but in any case, back to the social, I mean, the community that's created and the friends that you have, it's just another great social community that you can develop over time.
Yeah, I know that part's great in terms of, I made so many good friends from dancing that it's just been awesome. But let's get into some of the fun questions. So, are there any dance legends that you look up to that if you could dance with anyone in the world, alive or dead, who would it be?
Well, there are some really just amazing dancers for sure, and you know, they're all the ones that people think of, Fred Astaire and so forth, but I think there are a couple people that I particularly have been fond of. Tommy Tune was really one of the kind of early show dancers, and I just loved his work from, you know, when I was younger. And then I would say Bob Fosse, because you'll notice a lot of my kind of show numbers have a lot of Fosse kind of stuff. Yeah. And, you know, and there's some just amazing people, contemporaries too. And, you know, I think of people that have done choreography for me, like this picture back here. Michael Chapman is just like the most amazing choreographer and showman himself. And there are just so many great people that are part of this dance sport community that have, you know, just tremendous, you know, capabilities and creativity. So
I mean, I think it's interesting, the other students you meet, but also just all the interesting teachers that have different spins and have different skill sets, and that you learn from in the community as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you meet people that, I think one of the most remarkable things is you meet people from all over. If you choose to be a competitive dancer, and I mean, there are plenty of competitions right here in Chicago or, you know, the Midwest, but you see the same people at competitions, and you get to be friends over time. So I have, you know, just a remarkably fun group of people that I see at competitions all over and, you know, connect with. And
like they're kind of your global community, and you see each other as you fly into different comps. And
exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you're competing against one another, and you're still friends, competitors.
There's something really nice about that, where you can compete, but it's also, hey, I'll see you on the floor next time. And,
exactly.
I think that's really awesome. What about this? Was there been anything with dancing that at first it seemed like a failure, but later you kind of look back and you're like, well, that led me to this success? There's something that happened in the beginning that didn't look like it was going anywhere, but then now looking back, you're like, wow, that helped me become who I am now.
Yeah, I would say the important thing for me was going back to learn the basics and learn the technical, correct technique. Because I started in such an interesting, unique way. Usually you just don't go out and do, you know, show dances. You start with, you know, learning how to move your body, how do you place your feet, how to, you know, shape your hips and so forth. And, you know, I think some of the best advice that I got early on in my regular ballroom dancing and when I started competing were some of the coaches that said, you really need to focus on not just your performance, but on your technique. And because, you know, I can put on a good show, but you also have to please the judges, right?
Right, especially when you go down that competitive route, that makes sense. So,
absolutely.
And it's probably something that a lot of people in the rush to like just be dancing with their partner kind of can skip that part. So you kind of first you got to go back, and it feels like a setback initially, but it's kind of building that foundation.
Yeah, so I would say I was a couple of years in and, you know, having really great success, and then really had to step back and say, okay, let's really focus on technique and, you know, Because if you want to really do
Yep.
this at a competitive level, you've got to
Yeah.
get serious about that part too.
I'm a year or two and we just rebuilt my cha-cha basic like over quarantine, so
Yeah.
I feel your pain. So is there anything, I like this as kind of an ender question, that you would put on a billboard if there's a message that you wanted to share with the world that's kind of maybe something you live by or something that you think people don't know?
Sure. Well, I would say in a big way, I would just say life is an adventure, and you should take full advantage of every experience and make memories. So
Yeah.
that's really kind of the way I like to share my experiences with our children, with our lives. So we don't spend a lot of time or money buying things, but we do spend a lot of time and sometimes money doing things and experiencing. But I would say from a dance perspective, my sort of motto is you can do anything you want on the dance floor that you maybe can't do in real life.
Yeah.
So you can play it up to the crowd, you can, get into crazy positions and, act out and, pinch somebody because it's all part of the show.
Yeah, it's like a great way to enjoy it, right? And you live this alternate life.
So you can get away with anything
Do anything,
on the dance floor.
get out of jail card.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's like a great motto. I guess before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to touch on? Or do you feel like we hit everything?
No, I would just encourage anybody who has the slightest interest in, giving it a shot. Just go out, get on the dance floor, walk into the studio with or without a partner, and see if it's something for you. I think you'll be surprised how it'll change your life.
That's awesome. That's a great message to end on, I think. Well, this has been another episode of My Dance Up Student of the Week. Until next time, do what you love and keep dancing.